Hello, folks, and welcome this morning to a fairly special version of our game. It's basically a bit of a Sunday game reunion here. We actually have Michael Lyster about to join us as well. How are all the gents this morning?
Oh, Mr. Lyster, how are you?
I am very good. Good to see you.
I would just say you probably had a bit of a lie-in. Maybe looked out the window this morning. All these guys are tired, have a bit of a sleep and turnover. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to lie in until about 6:30 as usual in the morning. You know. But in actual fact, I like to get up around 3:30. But generally, I don't go to bed until about 3. You know, so look, things are busy enough.
Yeah, you were very good at the astronomy and all that. You know, I remember talking on the Sunday game with you, and you were on about the stars and the moon and everything coming out the night before and stuff. You know, you're a mighty man.
Well, I'll tell you something now. If you want to challenge me on any of that, please ask any question you like.
No, Muller, you'll be put in your place now, so pipe down.
No, pass, let's move on. I'm looking forward to doing the Sunday game at 8:30 on a Thursday morning. You know, it was a normal situation. We were only coming home then, Lyster, you know.
That was in, I don't know whether you call them, Tomas, the good old days or the bad old days. But I remember a couple of years ago doing a preview for, it was in either a Northern hurling semi-final or final, but it was down in Kilkenny. And we went out the night before, as you do. The producer of the programme, who shall remain nameless, was so either hungover or drunk the next day. We were meeting your man Power that used to play centre forward back in the Kilkenny team.
John Power, yeah.
And John is the farmer, so we were meeting him out in the farm, and we had to put the producer lying up against a cock of hay because he was not fit for purpose, let's say, and went on and just filmed without him. So.
The good old days, days.
I'd say to us, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
You don't have to mention his name. He's all right.
Just on that, lads, there must have been some crack back in the day. I'll just throw it to you, sir. Must have been some crack in the studio, out of the studio, whatever about when you were on camera. But it sounds like you all got on unbelievably well together, and I'd say you share some fair memories, some that can be told, some untold, I'd say too.
Well, sure, look at Michael was the leader, was the conductor of the orchestra. We followed suit. We had a great time. Like I loved every minute. I say the boys did too. Like, and sure, I remember one time with Michael, we were playing tip, and we got a great score. Galway did it to beat Tip of Pine. It was semi-final, whatever it was. But the two of us were kind of roaring off camera, but we didn't realise that we were actually on camera. I was kicking the table. I had my leg hitting the table like you would in a card game with your fist, like. Where it was Cost lifting the leg down, and I think Sheedy was with us. She were ribbing him, like, you know. But we had great fun and we had great banter. Thing has changed a bit now, but Michael, as I say, was the conductor, and we all followed suit. And you had Tomas, and sure, what they call look, Nana be fighting with you the whole time. Like, it didn't matter what way you go. I'd be always calling look Nana that I will tape what he says beforehand and then what he says at half time and afterwards, because like he'd go with the winning team the whole time. But he wouldn't give a fiddlers. But like we had a thrill a minute, like, and it was a lively show anyway, I can tell you that. It was great.
No, it was a great crack.
I remember one day, Tomas, just carrying on what Cyril was saying there. We were in Croke Park and Galway were playing in a big match, and again, I have a terrible memory for all these kind of things. But anyway, Galway were playing in the hurling and won the All-Ireland. So, Cyril, that would have been 1988, probably 97.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I drew out a kick. This is when we were in the old Nally Stand studio. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I do up the top stairs, there. Up the steel stairs, yeah.
But in my excitement, I drew out a kick, and I put my foot through the front of the set, and my foot got stuck in it. And then it came back to camera, and I was just trying to talk to the panel, whoever we had on the same day, and at the same time to get my foot back out of the set, because my foot was now hanging in midair, kind of, you know. But, as Cyril said, you know, great memories, great days.
Tomas, anything in particular that you can remember, like any crack that you had?
Yeah, it was incredible. I think, Michael and Cyril, you remember this. I don't know, some of the chief financial guru or, you know, in RT decided someday that they'd be pooling with cars for the guys that were travelling from Dublin, that you'd pool your cars, you know, and everybody would go together in the one car, you know. So you'd have to have a big car that day to fit in the 405. But also, when you go into studio, previously we had makeup artists as well, in studio that put on a bit of foundation and whatever, the eyeshadow and stuff like that, whatever, but some whiz kid above there decided anyway that we'd actually get rid of the makeup artist and we'd send the boys their own bag of makeup to do their own makeup. So can you imagine this outside the backfield in Thurles? Cars are pulled in, and there's us inside in the cars, and we putting on the makeup and stuff like that. Now, Cyril, because you'd know here, got 3 bags, right?
Yeah.
And Loughnane would have got 2, right? So myself and Lyster, we were okay. We just only needed a small. We only just needed a small little bit, right?
Just a little touch up, yeah.
Just a little touch up, yeah. But the crack inside the studio when fellas came in, like there were streaks here, there were streaks everywhere, right? We couldn't stop laughing. And I think, Michael, yeah.
Back in the day, I remember that as well. You actually looked, God rest him, like Lily Savage kind of coming in that time.
And I think one of the funniest ones though, Michael, I think you were in Thurles today. I think the studio that they made was just inside in a small little room. There was no air conditioning or anything, and with the lights, and it was a sweltering hot day. And Loughnane, God help him, he was like a man that was after coming out of a swimming pool in his clothes. He was drenched with sweat, and you could see it under the armpits across the front of his chest and everything. It was just incredible.
Well, the temperature in the studio that day, I remember as well, Tomas, it was incredible because the under the roof and the stand in Thurles, it was a tin roof, obviously, or whatever it is. And obviously, and it was an incredibly warm day, but this was multiplying it. And of course, the studio lights, etc., and everything else. But the temperature in the studio that day, I remember, was touching 35 degrees. Now, in anybody's language, unless you're in Dubai, like in the middle of the summer, that's warm. But I remember that as well. His shirt had to be literally peeled off him afterwards. There's a lot of people, by the way, who would have liked to have peeled his shirt off him after the match. But anyway.
It didn't stop him from talking, though, I must say.
Did you realise, lads, I just throw it over to you, Cyril, first, just how important you are even in the national conversation. Like the Sunday game is literally, it's an institution in itself. Did you realise, Cyril, like how many people had their eyes on you, how many people were going to be talking about what you were going to be talking about as well when you were live?
I wouldn't think so, really. Like, I know my thing anyway. Like, I loved the games, and I was going to be going anyway. And it was never a job, if you know what I mean. Like, you just love going more than all the lads. Like, I'd say the same thing. But like, no, it never entered our head. Like, and it wouldn't until you stop doing it, and then you'd be kind of looking at yourself and say, like, like what's he saying, or it's only an opinion. But at the same time, a lot of people would hear it and they discuss their opinion. But you're talking there about doing funny things. I remember one time. Paul Byrne, you remember Paul, Michael, and Tomas? And he rang me one Sunday morning. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm coming from, I think it's the Holy Communion Mass in the morning." He said, "Get to Galway quick. The match is called off in Galway." I don't know, were you there, Michael? It just rained off. But he said, we're doing a match, a hurling match from getting the feed into Galway. Now, there had been a hurling match earlier on the day. Dublin were playing someone, and I heard it on the radio going in. It was fierce wet and very, very pouring rain. And I know it was Curtin was the main free taker for Dublin at the time. So when I went to the studio, the studio was ready inside, and they had to ask a few questions about the Dublin game, which I wasn't at, didn't see, but I heard some of it on the radio. So I was able to fill in and say the lad got the scores and the free taking and the condition. I said, "Oh yeah, the game shouldn't have been played." But like we went to Peter Stadium and there was about 5 in it in Galway. Everyone had left and we had the whole place to ourselves. It felt unreal actually, like it didn't feel like a game at all.
But that was actually one of those situations, Cyril. I remember that day well, indeed. Like, you always remember the days where things go wrong as opposed to the days that everything was wonderful, kind of, But that was one of those occasions where, in fairness to the Sunday game, and I suppose to RTE, you soldiered on against all of the odds. I guarantee you, another TV station would have just said, "Match is not happening in Salt Hill. That's it. Put on cartoons or an old film or cowboy movie or something like that." We just decided we were going to do something. We didn't know what it was, but we were going to do something. And we kept the program on the air. And it was a talk show at that stage, obviously. But we still made a Sunday game out of it. And that was part of the whole thing about it, that you weren't going to admit defeat. You were going to get through it no matter what happened or what was said or the setbacks that you might get.
I'd imagine, Michael, you had to ad lib a fair few times, different scenarios, even like that. And I'm wondering as well, like what's it like in studio, say, when Brolly starts taking personal attacks at players, or and he starts pointing the finger and telling you to hold on now, hold on. Like what's that like? What's it like to be in the seat across from that live on television, knowing that this lad is throwing grenades left, right, and centre?
I used to, after a while with Brolly, I used to insist that Brolly was sat beside me, as opposed to Colm O'Rourke or Pat Spillane, and we used to put Colm out on the edge, the furthest away from me in the studio. And the reason for that was I knew Colm was reliable. I knew he was a go-to guy, a guy who wasn't going to say anything stupid. I kept Brolly in the seat beside me, simply so that I could hit him when I needed to. And it was as simple as that. Not necessarily hit him on air, but hit him off air. And that's just the way it worked. You did what you had to do, like to just try and kind of. It was one of those strange things, Michael, where you were trying to form a balance between keeping control of the situation, but at the same time knowing that the crack in the studio, and even if it was controversial at times, either on the football or the hurling or whatever, that this is what the audience wanted to see. And you asked Cyril the question there, where was he aware of the importance of the Sunday game and the panels and all that kind of stuff? I was always aware of it. And I got a reminder of it one day at the airport in Frankfurt. And this happened in many, many places. But I'm in the airport in Frankfurt. I'm checking in, and I hear this voice behind me going, "Hey, Lyster. So I turned around, and of course I got the usual one. "Would you tell that friggin' idiot?" And of course he went on a diatribe with one of the panelists that I won't mention, but he says, "Will you tell that fucking idiot Brolly anyway?"
Brolly was very shy, of course. And Brolly would he'd come in for the hurling, right? I mean, Michael was just a genius in terms of, if there was a double header, right, he'd have to do maybe the hurling first and then switch over straight to the football. And it was a incredible afternoon, right? But Brolly was mad about the hurling. And in Park Equi some days, I'm sure you've seen him, Michael himself and Colm O'Rourke were down in the field pucking a ball and the hurling the slitter. And we used to have a great bit of banter and stuff, I mean, forget about the football. There's only one game, it's the hurling. But Brolly was very shy. He would nearly want to get in on the seat for the hurling panel as well, right? That he was so up to date with the hurling side of it as well,
Well, in actual fact, Tomas, Brolly played hurling for Derry.
He did. He sure did. Yeah, he loved the game as well. Right, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was fantastic.
But that he was very sharp and intelligent.
Down in Thurles, we were on the, and like Tomas said, Brolly and Colm O'Rourke were on the football side of it, but we had a hurling match first, so they weren't due on the program until later on. So they were kind of taking their time going down, and they stopped for a bit of breakfast someplace along the way and all the rest of it. And I think neither of them fully realised the size of a Munster final in Thurles is just unreal.
Yes.
Above any other hurling championship, either in Croke Park. There's a special atmosphere in Thurles that's for me I'd never see anywhere else.
Yeah.
So they arrived down to Thurles in good time for the football, but now Thurles was absolutely jammed to the doors, and they couldn't get up to Semple Stadium. So O'Rourke did the obvious thing. He saw a guard and let down the window, and using the thing that he reckoned he was going to be recognised and all that kind of thing, he said to the guard, he says, "What's the quickest way up to the pitch?" And the guard looked at him and looked at Brolly and he said, "Run."
But Michael, you were a fair bit of man for the crack yourself. I always remember we were in Limerick, in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick, and it was a brilliant match. And I think coming out after the game, my car was parked in a different direction, so I said my goodbyes to you, and I think Cyril and I don't know who's with you walking up, but you were tormented by a group of fans. Everybody after the game wanted to know who was man of the match, the match, right? Whether fellas were getting onto bookies or getting the early decision of who we appointed man of the match or who we gave man of the match to. But anyway, I remember I was going on the other side of the footpath, And I look, whatever way I look back, there was Lyster pointing his finger over at me to the crowd that was around them, right? And he telling the boys, he gave the worst player in the field, right, the man of the match, right? And 'twas I picked him, right? So the crowd left their side, about 20 or 30 now, over to me. And my God, the berating I got, Mulcahy, you useless Cork. You know nothing about hurling. You know nothing about the game. How could you give him man of the match, right? And I was totally oblivious. But all I could do was smile. And the boys waving at me across the way. Oh, Jim Mull, we got you. We got you there.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. It's as simple as that.
Go on, sir.
You're talking about Brawley one day outside Montrose, and there was some protocol. It started pouring rain, all right, heavy. So I went to the boot of my old car and sure, I took out a jacket. I said it could be there for years. So one was used for fatherland, and I put it on me for a minute. Like this. Brawley looked and he said, "Farrell," he said, "if you keep wearing that jacket," he said, "it'll soon come back into fashion."
We had great days, but we had to be on our game as well in terms of, you know, we had to do a lot of review in advance. And back then, right, you were sent tapes, there was videos arrived, the postman was a busy man to do your analysis pre that week, you know, so they'd arrive at home, you'd put them into the cassette yourself, you pick out your analysis pieces, and then you get your call. So like today is totally different. It's sent on the screen in front of you, and it's moved on dramatically, you know. But back then we had great fun. But we were serious about our hurling. We were serious about Sunday game. We knew we had responsibility to talk about the game as well in a serious manner. But we had a great crack while we were doing it as well. It was just incredible.
In actual fact, Tomas, and the same applied obviously to our football panels and all that, and say what you like about Brawley or Spillane or whatever the case is. Like, Spillane was unbelievable for stats and facts and figures, and the amount of work that he used to put in, like the others did, in terms of all the analysis, pre-analysis of the match and all that. And sometimes I used to say to Pat, I said, look, less of that stuff. I said, it's only a game at the end of the day. Just tell me who you think is going to win, kind of, because he would be streaming off facts, figures, the last time they played, when they played 100 years ago, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, you know. But in fairness, like, the work that our panels put in was always of a very high quality. And then after that, it was a case of what you saw on the screen, whether they got it right or wrong, which is the same as any panel. Who they managed to upset, who they said something about that they didn't like, which was nearly every week, and all the rest of it, you know. But I can look back, Michael, at those days and all those panels that I worked with, like the two lads here with us today, and stand over their performance and stand over everything we did, whether people always thought we were right or wrong. We always knew that we had an opinion, and they were prepared to express it. And that's very important. And there was more in those days, and I don't want to compare the Sunday game of my time with the present Sunday game, because that would be completely unfair. But this is more about the culture in television, not in the Sunday game itself, but in television generally, where we were allowed to do much more than the guys maybe are allowed to do now. I think there's a lot more eyes on them from an RTE perspective, if I may say that, than we had on us. You know, the only time that there were eyes on us when we really messed up and we had to answer for something that we did, which we knew was probably wrong anyway, you know. But I just wonder if the panel, as I said, I'm not trying to compare, actually I am, if they're given enough freedom. I'm asking the question. I'm not making accusations, if you like, or anything like that. You know, are they given as much freedom as we got? That's the question.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. And I made a comment on that in Kilkenny there prior to the game on Sunday. I did a piece with Kilkenny Radio on the Friday, and they asked me about the Sunday game and about the crack and stuff like that. And I just said, look, I know the world of television has changed, and look, it's whether it's Sky or whether it is BT Sport, the way they do it, right? And you just maybe like to see a little bit more punch from the panelists, but are they allowed to do that? That's probably not their decision, because you can't fault the people that are there. We had our time. The new people get their opportunity, which you have to actually admire and accept as well. But are they actually being held back a little bit, you know? And if I just say to you there, Michael, you mentioned about Bradley and Spillane, right? We were there one day, and the football was first. And as you mentioned about Spillane would arrive in, and it was like he was after swallowing the Bible for the week in terms of quotes and what he would say. So he put his notes down on the table and he said he must go to the loo. So quick as a flash, there was Brawley over and scanned the Bible in front of him. He says to me, he says, watch Spillane now the minute the show opens. So I think Michael introduced the panel. He said, we'll go to Joe Brawley first. And Joe Brawley read off the first quote that Spillane had written down on his Bible, right? And Spillane is looking at him stupid. We're in the background behind the cameras and we are in stitches, right? He really got Spillane big time.
Just, Cyril, I might throw it to you first because you're probably the one that comes to mind most.
He's the oldest, yeah.
Well, that's not what I meant. Mature, yeah. Would people? He's got experience, Tomas. Would people be coming up to you like, reciting your catchphrase, be it "bang back of the net, nuts to a monkey"? Like, would people be coming up to you saying their catchphrases on the street or what? You in particular nearly had more than most.
Yeah, they would. There was one famous time.
Very risky, Cyril. Yeah.
Very
risky, Cyril. Yeah, we will say that to ourselves. Very risky.
That was all the talk anyway. But there was one famous time, Michael. I was always in the radio thing was saying "as such," whatever we were saying it was as such. So Paddy Power in their wisdom had a bet for All Ireland that within a minute or something that was said. Was it a minute or 2 minutes? I said twice. So the local boys around home said, "Gee, this we can't let this slip by." Well, I said, "As I can't back it, but sure, there's nothing to stop it." So I made sure with him. So that was the last time there was a bet on that like that.
People still say that to me now, Cyril. They would say, "Oh, maybe give Cyril Farrell a ring for that piece." As such, it's nearly done. You've nearly taken ownership of those two words.
Yeah, there's plenty of other ones as well.
Yeah, Tomas, would you have got much thrown at you as well? Like the one when I think of you, Tomas, would be when you start going through names and you'd always say the Dara Fives, the Tiger Borkas, the Austin Gleasons.
Yeah, sure. Look, what's his name? Aidan Tierney there has a right-out skit at times, right? And he's the Cork accent, and he rattles off all the names and the Dara Fives and the Tony Kellys and all those fellas. Yeah. Oh, I would absolutely. But I think it was, I don't know, back when we started out, maybe the mobile phones weren't that popular. But as we grew on, right, and you had your mobile phone, and obviously in studio you were told, make sure you turn down the sound and turn it off and stuff like that, right? But you still get put it on silence, you still get the text messages, and next thing you could even kind of in a break, you're looking at your phone. Jesus, Mulcahy, your tie is awful. Where did you get the suit? Jesus Christ, you should get unbelievable altogether. People were serious. Where you might think you have a lovely tie on you, and when it goes on camera, it could be an orange, and you thinking it was a red, and fellas are texting you, Jesus Christ, take that tie off you. It's absolutely cat, So bit of fun, bit of fun.
And the other thing people used to do, Tomas, was when they saw you on the Sunday game or saw you on television, ring you.
Yes.
See what your mobile phone was on, and that happened one day in studio with Michael Dignan. Yeah, Michael had been out in Spain or someplace playing golf for the week in one of these trips and whatever, and he arrived in, and he wasn't exactly in the best of shape now because they obviously had a great week and all the rest of it. And he kind of said to me, "Listen, I'm only after getting off a plane here, so kind of go easy on me and leave me out of it as much as you can and all that kind of stuff." Which, in fairness, I did. We had Ger Loughnane was on the panel, and I can't remember who the other panelist was, but so I genuinely decided to go easy on Michael and just kind of have him there and the odd chat and whatever. But as we're sat in the studio and he's kind of in a semi daydream, his phone goes off because somebody saw him and somebody decided to ring him. And he gets into a panic because he's rooting in his pocket to try and turn it off, but he can't find the phone and all this. And I'm aware, Ger Loughnane is talking, but I'm aware of all this thing obviously going on in the studio. And I said, I can't miss this opportunity. So in the middle of it, I turned around to him and says, Michael Dignan, what was your impression of that incident? And he kind of looks blankly at me and he said, well, there was two sides of fault there. There was the one side and there was the other side, and in between the two of them, there were probably one more fought than the other, and he was going up, and Loughnane beside him nearly fell off the chair with a laugh, as the rest of us did, because we knew we hadn't a clue what was going on.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I'd say the amount of things, and even I'm just thinking there's things happen that probably nobody realizes, only yourselves, and you probably, people watching it probably didn't realize as well. Just a question I throw to y'all. I start with you, Michael, actually. Are you happy that you did the Sunday game in an era maybe without phones, and even that you lived, predominantly through an era without phones? Because there's all sorts of, if you make a boo-boo now, almost everybody can see it, whereas any mistakes or any crack that you had there kind of went under the radar, which is nice in a way.
Well, I don't know about that, Michael, because it didn't go under the radar in the sense that you're live on television. You're live with actually the most popular program on TV, with the exception of the Late Late Toy Show. If you look at the TAM ratings at the end of the year, the Sunday game is always up there at the top. Now, news bulletins don't come into the TAM ratings, but outside of that, we always rated highly. So we had a huge audience. And they saw what you were doing, and whether they agreed with it or didn't agree with it, whatever. Now, you're right, social media reacts immediately to what's said on the program and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, people reacted then as well. And in fact, even worse, they reacted by writing to the DG and RTE about you, whereas now they just spit it out on social media and you can, delete it or not look at it or whatever. But I used to get letters sent over to me in the sports department from the DG's office. Please respond to that man, kind of, and blah, blah, blah. And it would drive you cracked sometimes. But so I don't think, Michael, there's a different scenario out there, but the whole general picture is the same, in the sense that you talk about matches in a game that people are so passionate about, they're going to respond to it one way or the other, no matter what the medium is. They're out there anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Sir, there was a picture going around one time, and I have to ask it. Maybe I should ask Michael first, but I will ask you first. There was a picture of you. You looked to be taking 40 winks in the studio one day. You looked like you were asleep. Did that ever happen?
Oh, it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was looking at these famous notes. I remember there, Michael. We were on with Michael, of course, there, and Michael Dyden was with me anyway, and I was saying to Dyden, I'd seen a fella during the week playing for, I think it was UL or something, against UCC. I don't know which lad it was now. It might have been one of the young Cork lads. Was it Robbie Flynn or someone do? But I mentioned to him anyway. Next thing, Michael comes on and he's talking away, and he asked Dyden about any new players coming. And sure enough, Dyden would say that I saw the young Cork wing forward, he could make it, And I'd said to him about 10 minutes earlier. So that was my new guy gone straight away.
Was that something you'd have to be aware of, Tomas, after a while? Like, if you literally had a conversation.
Well, after a while you would.
After a while you keep your notes closed inside your inside pocket, right? Because a couple of boys there, like Cyril and all that, they'd be sitting down and there's a nice little chat over a cup of tea beforehand. And before you know it, what you said to him is rattled out, and you're kind of stuck at yourself. Oh, Jesus, he's after taking that pint already again, right? So I was there one day with Loughnane. I think, Michael, you were there as well. And a fair play to you. Like, Loughnane was getting very ratty about the Clare boys back there. And these were guys that he actually trained and won All-Irelands for him. And he was saying about a half a dozen, they're finished, they're gone, and they shouldn't be on the Clare hurling team anymore, right? So I couldn't take this anymore because I said to him, like, man, they're the players that put you in your seat where you are now, right? And Michael was grabbed by this, and I think we were due to go to an ad break, and Michael says to the boys, no, let's let this go, don't go to an ad break yet, right? And I argued the point with him. I said, look, you're wrong. You can't be saying that. They're the guys that won our medals. They're the guys that made you the man you are, that put you on the seat and stuff like that, right? So to be fair to him, he did come up to me after the show and he says, fair play to you. He says, you had a bit of a cut off me there. He says, I admire you for that, right? So it was honest. We said what we had to say, and people accepted the same as Cyril. We used to have great banter with Cyril, and you accept this in good faith. But it was all about hurling. The analysis was strong. It was a great show. Great show.
Michael, what was the most difficult situation can you remember that you were put in? Like, I'm just thinking of the puke football, and thinking of the Spillane's Shiite football, and thinking of Brolly's rant at Sean Kavanagh and thinking about Lucknan's constipated hurling. Like, what was the most difficult situation you were put in where you're literally really have to think on your feet here?
There's no question about that. That's easy to answer to you, because it was simply Joe Brolly, the day that he said something totally inappropriate about a colleague of mine, and about a match, and about the ugliness of the match and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of those things where other stuff you could play around with, and some of the controversial things that the lads said and all that. But on this particular occasion, there was no question of that. You had to get across this big time, because it was close to being libelous. You know.
Well, it's lucky Tomas wasn't on there.
I know the man he's talking about. Yeah. He's halfway between Cork and Clare, yeah.
Correct and right. But as serious as the situation was, and it was serious because it was an outrageous thing to say, but as serious as it was, there was a kind of a funny side to it subsequently, or immediately afterwards, if you like. The producer of the program, who is a very busy man, and he's trying to watch things that are happening next on the program, and then the thing after that, and whatever. And this comment is made, and I immediately jumped across it and said, Joe, you cannot say that. You have to apologise. You have to withdraw that remark. That's outrageous. And the panel backed me up. The other lads on the panel said the same thing, kind of, Joe, you shouldn't have said that, and blah, blah, blah. And this is going on. And then the producer down in the outside broadcast truck suddenly realises something is after happening. And about 5 minutes after this he says to me in my earpiece, he said, what did Bradley just say there? And obviously I can't repeat it. So I'm trying to ignore it. And then somebody told him what Bradley had said in the truck. And he says to me, oh, Jesus Christ, you have to apologise for that. You have to apologise for that. And I'm already after apologising 5 minutes before. And he's practically jumping out of the truck at this stage, kind of. And all I could do, because I could see the funny side of it, it was like a delayed reaction kind of thing. And I'm trying not to start grinning because of the seriousness of the situation, and trying at the same time to get the odd surreptitious nod to the camera, as in, I hear you, I know, thank you very much, kind of, But that was a rough day, because there was
Michael, that same day we were there doing hurling afterwards, and it was Henry Shefflin's first time on the show, out broadcasting, and we heard what was going on, and Henry, he got a terrible shock, like, God, he said, this I don't know, is this place for me at all? Like, if it's like this. I said, look, it isn't really like that. That's just once off. Like, but he couldn't believe it. Like, I think
but sure, look, sir, the footballers are a different breed.
Yeah. But when he went to set down, there was a lot of wires on him, and he had a suit on, which was very warm. When he sat down to get ready for his show, he got a terrible pain in his shoulder, and we were going to go down to the physio. One of the Limerick physios was there to rub his shoulder. Like, I don't know what it was, a kind of tension or what. Like, but he did get it. He genuinely got a shock to hear what was going on. Like, because it sounded bad. But we were so used to Bradley, you passed no remarks on him.
That's gas. I'd say he got a shock about something that's not related to a match, and he got an injury. And I'd say he never got shocked or pressurised or overawed coming into a match. Isn't that gas?
Yes, I'd say it was a Munster finals, because he was telling me it was that was his first Munster final ever. Now, of course, they'd be training in his time, I suppose. I couldn't believe it. He's only down the road. Oh yeah, he got a shock, like, because Bradley, the whole that was a different. But sure, Michael just handled it in his own way.
I'll tell you, sir, if Shefflin got a shock, I ended up with 10 years of heart trouble after that. So
you could follow Bradley.
Tomas, I just throw it over to you. Do you miss it? Like, it sounds like crack that you had. Like, when did you retire? Early 90s? Did you come nearly straight onto the panel then? Like, you're probably there for
I came on in 95.
There you go. Mike, someone's ringing you. They can see.
It's Michael Dignan. It's Michael Dignan who's trying to get me back. No, I came on. I remember I finished up in 95, and we'd last declared the championship in Limerick, and about a couple of minutes later, I got a call from RT to say, look, we know you're finishing up and stuff like that. Would you like to come on board? And I came on in 95, and I had finished with Cork early. It was early May. I think we were there was no back door then. We were knocked out of the championship, so I kind of did a bit for the rest of the season with them, and I was there for 25 years afterwards. So I think maybe I did something right in the terms that I was there for that period of time, and I really enjoyed it. No, I mean, I know people say, look, we'd love to see you back in the Sunday game, but look, our time is over at this stage, and I'm sure Michael and Cyril, you say that as well. It's now the younger generation. You can never deny the younger people, the females of the camogie world and ladies football, their opportunity as well. And it is what it is, and that's the way television is gone. We were very very tied into like the conversation. You have 2 minutes or you have 3 minutes. You've got to get your best points across at that stage because of the way the game flowed. And, you know, one abiding memory out of it again would be, Michael, we were on the day that Marty interviewed Brian Cody in the dressing room after he lost an All-Ireland final, was it? And Loughnane was alongside of me and he was giggling away mad. And I knew he wanted to come in with the killer punch, right? You know, so he just said, would somebody go over and pick Marty Marcy up off the floor, right? You know, it was a brilliant comment, right? But you only get a short period of time. People realize, oh, you're on the television for an hour and a half, but because of the game and breaks and stuff like that, you just have a very short window to get to express your point, and obviously to entertain the viewer that's sitting at home looking at it as well. So look, no, I've no regrets. Happy time. RT were very good to me, and look, we move on and we go different directions, and maybe there may be a life after the Sunday game or our game or the next game, whatever it is.
Cyril, you were there probably even longer, were you?
I was there a long. I don't know how long, but I was there a long time. You know, more than Tomas, like I had a fantastic time. But Tomas makes a very good point there. You might be told, say, at a kind of a meeting in the evening at 6 o'clock, I would have 2 minutes here and a minute and a half there. But when the time would come, you'd find that with one producer, that 2 minutes might be cut to a minute. Like, just, you know, it was very short. You had to bang off the point very quick because just wouldn't get the time.
Michael, while I'm here, can I just simply say this to you? Cyril and Tomas were brilliant panelists. Cyril was a fabulous panelist, and because I knew Cyril because of the Galway connection and all that kind of stuff, like, he was always great, and he would talk for Ireland like he's doing today and all that kind of thing. But when Cyril was the Galway manager, he was the most difficult man to interview at the time. Jesus, I remember going down to Galway, and you would want about 3 questions lined up in your head at the same time, because you knew as soon as he answered him a question, his first thought was, how was he going to avoid answering this? So the way he avoided it was he just didn't answer it anyway. And you'd ask him a question, you get a 2-word answer, and you had to have the next question ready straight away to just not have these big gaps in the conversation or anything like that. You know, you were the most guarded man, Cyril. And then when we put you on the Sunday game, all of a sudden you didn't have the responsibility, I suppose, or the pressure of being the Galway manager, and you just flowed into it.
Yeah, well, you get better as it goes on. I was afraid of you that time.
Yeah, and it was difficult. It was difficult at times, sir. Like when we had Loughnane in between us, because I mean, we used to slag him and say, "Who put the 50 cent into his slot that morning because we can't get him to shut up?" Right? Trying to get in. If you're saying you've a minute to go or a minute to an ad break or 2 minutes before the throw in, then gives your comments. Loughnane would go off and sure the 2 minutes are gone. And Michael will say, "Sorry, lads, we have no time for that," right? You know, so you'd be giving him a bit of a kick and would just shut up and give us a chance, right, as well, right? You know, so that was great.
The last season, Tomas, which was 2018, that I was on the Sunday game, and at that stage, to be honest with you, I can't say to you that I had lost interest. I didn't lose interest, but I didn't care enough because I knew there was no going forward. And we were down in Cork, and Ger was with us in the studio, and I knew his game. I knew the way he played it in terms of dominating the time in the studio. But on this particular day, I just kept interrupting him in mid-sentence. I just kept talking across him to bring in whoever else we had in the studio. I think Liam Sheedy was there and somebody else and that kind of stuff. And Ger, rightly so, was getting irritated by this. So we went eventually to a commercial break, and he said to me, "Did you see that thing there recently where Graham Souness walked out of the soccer studio in England because the presenter, the presenter kept interrupting him?" And I said to him, "Ger," I said, "actually, a bit of advice to you." I said, "The lift," I said, "is just outside the door there. But I know the lift is always crowded and you'll be bumping into people. So the fire escape is actually just down the corridor if you want to go out that way.
Brilliant.
That was the
Brilliant.
You call his bluff.
And the two of you are gone very quickly then.
What you're looking at me.
Yeah.
It was all games on the air, and we all got on, I think, lads, very well together. And okay, you'd have your little spats, and I would have spats at times with the panelists because of things they did or didn't do or whatever the case is, But we never, none of us ever fell out. I mean, even on that particular occasion, Ger saw the funny side of it. That was the most important thing. Once I told him to basically feck off down the fire escape, he saw the funny side of it, and it was great. It was all good fun.
There's some great comments and questions coming in. I'll just fire one from Porter here. He says, "You're not that old, Tomas, and yourself and Cyril were always very fair in your views. Missed from the Sunday game along with Michael." Joe Butler just has a question. I might start with you, Cyril. What was the greatest game that you saw over the years, and what was the worst? So maybe something that you covered in studio. What was the best and the worst?
I'm trying to think what year. It was a Kilkenny Tip final.
Probably 9 or 10, I'd say.
Yeah, one of them now. And we were coming down the stairs afterwards, and it was a big guy, one of the rugby lads met him come down, and he said to me, "What's a free in hurling?" Because it was a great game. No quarter given, no quarter. It was one of them years. And I said, "There's no free in hurling unless you're killed. That's the only way there's a free." But that day, it was one of them free. It was a great free flow game. It was a fantastic game.
Yeah.
Do you remember on the flip side of that, Cyril, like one of the worst games you ever covered? Something that was like very hard to analyse. I remember at Wexford, I think it was the Constipated Hurling comment that Lucknow came out. It was Wexford Dublin played an awful game down in Wexford Park one year. It was atrocious. Is there any game that sticks out that was, maybe not too easy to analyse after?
Not really, because you could have very defensive, like in latter years. We'd call it the famous sweeper. They call it 6+1. They were all coming in, but like the
Cyril, hold on a while. You started that.
You started
all that with your 3-man midfield back in 1986, and that wasn't yesterday. That wasn't yesterday. God, a good job. There was no laptops and iPhones back then, and social media.
I made an all-star with Johnny Crowley. But
you did. You got man of the match and an all-star. Yeah.
Even in defensive things, I'd see kind of good if it was only a junior hurling game, you know what I mean. You could make, I always felt on the program that we were there okay to analyse it, but also to sell the product, to make it feel good, because if you're going to downgrade the product, people say, "Oh, shit, they're only it's the same old mundane thing," or the game is no good. You can kind of, without going overboard, you can make it. You can always make a poor game kind of feel fairly good if you're doing a kind of a good job in it. You'll make it high, and if you only show the highlights, so every game is going to look good. Not really the hurling now. It's hard to figure out one. There was one final, I suppose, was it between Kilkenny and Cork? Remember Tomas the Reid wet day?
1999, yeah.
It was a dull kind of a game. Cork were kind of couldn't get moving. Typical Kilkenny kind of in their face and made it physical and wore them down. That was a hard one. It was very low scoring. It was hard to.
Yeah, we still won that one though, sir. We still won that one though. We still playing in the rain, even though a lot of fellas say we didn't, right?
Tomas, same one for you. What was the best and worst game you covered?
I'd say that. Was it Kilkenny going for the 3-0? That tipped Kilkenny final with Sheedy in charge. I think the physicality that was in that match was just incredible. I think it was the first maybe of starting period of strength and conditioning coming in, guys going into gym and doing a lot of gym work over the winter time, right? And that was an incredible game. And I think the tip stopped Kilkenny at that stage, right? And I always remember Mike in the studio the day of the final. Robbie Fowler, Jason McAteer came into the studio, right, after the game, and it's kind of maybe something we probably in our team maybe could have done is maybe just put a mic to him, because they were saying they wanted to go on TV because they'd never seen anything like what they'd seen out on the pitch. They thought it was the greatest game in the world that they'd ever seen. And this is coming from guys across playing soccer at the highest level. They just could not get over the intensity, the physicality, and without anybody getting hurt, the way people were pulling with the hurley. And I think that was probably one of a great occasion of an All-Ireland final because of the hurling was top class, but the physicality was there. And when they came together, Tip and Kilkenny, there was no love lost. And, the banter beforehand, sometimes the games fall flat, but this didn't fall flat. From the minute to throw in, it went right to the final whistle, and it was an incredible advertisement for hurling. It was absolutely brilliant.
Same question to you, Michael. Any particular game stand out? And I imagine for all of you, and just even for you, Michael, first, being a Galway man as well, like 2017 must have been, like, is it hard to keep your emotions even in check with something like that? And obviously you were there in 87 and 88 as well. When your own county is winning All Ireland, is it hard to stay neutral?
Yeah, well, it is, but at the same time, that's what you're paid to do. You're not paid to be there as a fan, although, as you said yourself, of course you're a fan anyway. So it's a balancing act between the two. But maybe, I suppose, Michael, to answer that, the most emotional game for me to be involved in covering for the Sunday game was the 1998 All-Ireland football final, where Galway won for the first time in 32 years. But more importantly than that, several of the guys on that Galway squad at the time, including Porrick Joyce, of course, who was one of the stars of the show, they're from my own parish, from Killereardon down in County Galway. And it wasn't just a case of Galway winning it, it was your own county winning it. But in actual fact, not only was it your own county, but to a large part, it was your own parish and your village involved as well. But just to go back to quickly to another point, Michael, about having the lads in studio, Robbie Fowler and Jason and that kind of stuff. We had one day, Garrett Edwards came in as a guest in the studio, just in like for a 2-minute chat. He was a guest at a hurling championship match between Cork and Kilkenny. And he'd never seen hurling before. And we decided, we got our hands in him and asked him to come in and just kind of give his thoughts. And I said, Garrett Edwards, famous Welsh player, Lion player, and all that, you've played some fantastic matches. And I said to him, what did you think about that? I says, how would you like as a sportsman to be down there on the pitch there today with a hurley in your hand? And he looked at me and he says, Jesus Christ, I wouldn't like to be down there without one in my hand.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, and I think that was the beauty as well. There was the amount of international people. Paul McGrath, seen a couple of matches, Alan Shearer, these guys, when they came over, they just couldn't believe what they were seeing, So we were very passionate about it in terms of being managers or players and stuff like that, right? And when you hear that from the outside coming in, and the international sports stars said, geez, this is an unbelievable occasion. And it just shows what we have in the GAA, and hopefully we can hold that for many years to come.
Well, I always say about it that, I've been fortunate enough in my career to be at some major sporting events. And it's not just been obviously about the Sunday game, but other things I've done as well, like toured New Zealand's and Lions tours, and been to Formula One Grand Prix and etc. and Champions League matches. And I was at some very big games, the night Manchester United won back in the 90s and so on. But I would say to you, if you ask me, what's the best field game that I've ever seen, without any question at all in my mind, it's the game of hurling. It beats them all, trump, hands down, no question.
Michael, we used to, with the boys of me in RT, the soccer pundits as well, that had an office of their own. I'd be passing by an odd time, and I'd put my head in and I'd say, Les, you want to bet on the match? And the lads said, what do you want to bet? I said, on the corners, and they tell me to feck off. That time, there was very little goals, very corners.
Yeah, you're right there, sir. Like Dunphy and Giles and a few guys used to be sitting down and decided there could be European Championships on or something like that in the middle of the summer, and they'd be getting ready for the night show. And we're saying, lads, would you ever copy us on? Would you come and watch a real game? Come on, we come down there the corridor. We'll show you the small ball. We'll show you how a real game is played. Oh, the crack was mighty.
There was a comment once time, or somebody asked me a question one time. We had a guest into RTE. He was a famous sportscaster in the United States, a guy called Don Quickie, who was a huge name. Like he was like the presenter of the Sunday game here in Ireland, or whatever the case is. And he saw this hurling match. It was a match on the same day, and he was kind of a guest in the studio just to say hello to people and blah blah, and see how RTE worked and all that. And he started asking questions from me, like, this is off air, not on air, but just about the game and about the rules of the game and things like that. And he paused at one stage and he said to me, tell me, he said, during the season, would there be many fatalities? And I said, "Don't, it's quite that bad."
Maybe Marty.
Cyril, I just throw it to you really quickly there. The boys mentioned about Dunphy and Giles. Did you ever end up on a night out with any of those boys like that? They could be opening an unbelievable can of worms here.
No, I tell you what, way back, when Johnny Giles took over Shamrock Rovers, a good friend of ours, Michael had known well, or Paddy Mulligan, was involved that time, and I went with Mulligan for a few days up to Dublin to see Giles was kind of coming from Leeds, shall we say, where he had been in Man United and kind of brought a professional era to training. So I went to 2 or 3 days to his training sessions to see how could I take anything from it for our own. You know what I mean? He didn't mind at all. Mulligan had it clear for me, like, you know.
Yeah.
Mulligan was a gas man. Another famous day going into Croke Park with the Galway team, and you only get 30 passes or something at that time. And it was all, you know, you had to have the ticket going in, and a small little gate, not through the turnstiles, but anyway, Mulligan was there waiting for us, and he went up to the gate, and to this fella at the gate knew Mulligan well. Oh, he said he could come here, Paddy, all them lads come in. No one had to give a ticket at all. Just walked in. Mulligan leading us in. The lad at the gate was a soccer follower.
Well, Paddy was actually a great GAA supporter and enthusiast and all that. And as you know, Cyril, Paddy's family or some of his relations come from Tuam, our own neck of the woods down there. So yeah.
Yeah, he was fanatic on GAA altogether. Unreal.
Michael, you mentioned there about hurling being, the greatest field sport. You've a mad interest, and you probably still are interested in the rally driving as well. So whatever chaos you had in studio, I'd say paled in comparison to driving a rally car at God knows what speeds with my own Irish independent colleague Vincent Hogan doing co-pilot for you, I believe, for many years.
Yeah, well, as I said to you, I'm a huge fan of field sports like the hurling that I mentioned. Maybe I was too much of a fan of it because I spent some time in a lot of fields around the country in the rally driving days, which I wasn't necessarily supposed to be in. But I remember one day down in doing the Circuit of Ireland down in Kilkenny someplace. And the way it works is you roll up to the start and you start at intervals of 30 seconds. And it's a very tense time because you're belted into the car, you have the helmet on, and you're about to take on this very, very tricky challenge. And you're concentrating like mad. And your co-driver, Vincent, as you said, is giving you the countdown, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. And as he gets to about 10 seconds, I heard this sudden mad rapping on the window of the car. And there's this fella standing beside the rally car. And I thought there was something wrong. So I roll down the window and he looks in at me. He says, "Just stick to the television, will you?" That was his comment on my rally driving.
Did you look? You must have loved it though. It's an unusual pursuit, shall we say? It definitely wouldn't be for everyone, given the danger involved.
I know. I mean, but look, the crack was mighty. One of the great things about a sport like that is that the camaraderie between the competitors was just unbelievable. Like when you went out on the roads and you went out on the stages, you wanted to beat the other guy, and you'd be thick as anything with yourself if he was a couple of seconds quicker than you or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, competitors never saw each other stuck. You know, if somebody had a problem, they were there to help you. And I remember, Cyril, doing the Galway rally on a stage not too far from your neck of the woods out there. The clutch went in the car. So I couldn't get off the line for a couple of stages. So what I had to do was used to have to go to the competitors who were starting the stage behind me to push me off the line. I would be able to get a start in second gear, but there was no first. And they would push me off the line and they would push me away, and I'd kickstart the car and get going. But every time I asked them to do this, and they would have to get out of their own rally cars to come and push me. But I heard one of them as he's pushing me down the road. I needed to push like for about 20 or 30 yards just to get it kicked. And as we're going down, he says to one of the other fellas, "He's a desperate fucking idiot."
Tomas, I'm wondering, would you have trusted him enough to get into the car with him?
I tell you
no,
what, I wouldn't have trusted getting into the car if he was in it.
No, I wouldn't have trusted it. He tells some great stories about his days in the cars and stuff like that as co-pilot, and scary, scary moments. I'm sure when he landed in the field, he had hurling the ball in the boot for the greatest game that he spoke about hurling, and had a few pucks when he was waiting to be pulled back out. But no, I never did. I never did. No, maybe I did once or twice, but twice I'd say, but nothing at the speed he'd be going on a rally and over ditches and through gates and around corners and stuff like that as well. I mean, he tells some great stories about it. Yeah,
we had a car at one stage, Michael, which was a left-hand drive, and this was in the days of the old big turbos in cars. And the thing about the turbos was they flew out the turbo a huge flame when you changed down. It just boom like that and made a terrible noise and all that kind of stuff. And we were doing the Rally of the Lakes in Killarney one year, and there was a nighttime stage, and you could see this flame down behind you for about 50 yards. I mean, it was very spectacular now, I have to say. But the thing about it was the car was left-hand drive, so everything was the other way around in it, including where the turbo pipe was at the back of the car. And that night in the Gleneagle Hotel, this fella came over to chat to us, and he says to me, he said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "I was watching you out there on that stage," he says, Knockfield, and he said, "I noticed," he said, "the flame comes out of the back of your car, the other side. Is there any particular reason for that?" And before I got a chance to say anything, my partner at the time, Enda Nolan from Cardo, he says to him, "Oh no," he said, that's very simple. He says, "We had to change that." Your man says, "Why?" He says, "Oh, we were getting an awful lot of complaints from women." And he says, "Getting complaints from women?" He says, "Yeah," he said, "the thing is, like, we like to cut the corners in very tight, but Jesus, sure, the poor old turbo wasn't a burning the tights off them, and we had to put it over the other side of the car." And he looked at the two of us and he said, "No, Jesus," he said, "there's a thing you'd never think of."
Michael I'm conscious of time there, sorry, you know. I mean, it's grand for these two boys here. I know they're sitting in their pajamas and their slippers and stuff like that as retired men, you know. So I have to kind of do a small bit of work. Is it okay if I jump off here now?
Last question I just throw at you, Tomas. Who's going to win the All-Ireland?
Well, if you're sitting at home last Saturday night and you're watching Limerick below the Gaelic grounds and the performance in the second half, particularly, I think they're the team to beat. I think John Kiley has done an incredible job, and I think what he's used this year was to find 3 or 4 players. And I looked at Colin Coughlin, and I watched him 2 years ago below in Parky Ring at an under-20 match against Cork, and I thought he was impressive. But I met a couple of Limerick boys. No, he's too heavy. He's too slow. He's not going to. But how they've got to that guy in a 2-year period to turn him into what he is now. Like, if without the colours of the helmet, you could have said this was another Kyle Hayes operating from left half back the last day. So I think that is the big thing for Limerick. They've now unearthed 3 or 4 serious guys that are putting challenges on the guys that were there, maybe the starting 15, and maybe 1 or 2 of those are going to come into the fray by championship time, which is going to freshen it up. And that's what Kilkenny did when they were winning, and they were winning over those years ago. They were always finding 2 or 3 new players every year, and I think that's where Limerick are at. They're the team to beat for me.
Brilliant. Tomas, thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers.
See you, Tomas. Take it easy.
We see you, sir. Mind
you. Bye yourself. Bye.
I won't keep you, lads. I'll throw one at you, sir. We had a question in from one of the viewers. They said, "Who are Cyril's top 3 riskiest hurlers in Ireland?"
At the moment.
At the moment, yeah.
Risty. Young Drinnan.
Can you define risky, Cyril? Actually, there's a good one for you.
What I mean by wrist is they don't have to hurl from the shoulders, just like a little flick, like a lad say fly fishing. Just a little wrist, it's only a little flick at the wrist, but you can drive a ball with your wrist. Like, it isn't actually how the force they hit with. That's, that mightn't drive it at all. It's just to have the power in your wrist. That's where, that's where I've been risky. Just kind of natural. Or that young Drinnan has it now. Like, most of them are good free takers. Like, you see, this is the thing. There's a young guy there, and he's talking about Coughlin there, who's very good. But Coughlin isn't as good going backwards when he's beaten in the half backline, knowing well from college. There's a young guy called O'Neill. Very, very good hurler. Like, has all the, now it will be hard to get on the Limerick team, but like he has all the skill in the world. Like, like the young, Cork got a lot of criticism last weekend for not standing up to Kilkenny, but like there was 2 goals in it, but they still got 22 points for that. Like, to me, they weren't beaten by as much as people are saying, and I still think in a kind of a different pitch. There could be a different ball game altogether. They're still going to be there or thereabouts the base. But like as Tomas is there, Kilkenny are the team to beat. Like there's no doubt about that. There's a young fella.
Kilkenny are the team
not
to beat.
Kilkenny. Limerick are the team to beat. I made a famous statement a few years ago to take 10 years to win All Ireland for Kilkenny. This is the 8th year, so they have this year and 2 more to go. So like they're very hard to beat. But that's that's the way. That's Kilkenny. Dublin have a few very good young lads. I saw them under 21 and under 20 there last year. They have lovely hurlers. People very, very natural. Like, and if Micheál Donoghue can get them through, they could cause a little surprise somewhere along the way. Like, but you're talking about funny incidents in hurling. We were coming back from a Fitzgibbon game in Belfast, terrible weather, ice, snow, and our trainer, our physical education trainer, was called Horse Regan. Michael, you'd know him well. Tony Regan.
Yeah, I know Horse well, of course.
And his son now is Tony as well. But we're coming anyway, and he was driving, and we left the road, ice, and went over. There was no ditch. We went through a ditch, and we hit a cow in the field, and we pushed the car back out. I think the cow was dead, but there was no mobile phones that time. And anyway, we got home. But the following morning, in the archway of the famous UCG, there was a famous archway there, and big sign up: horse kills cow.
Jerry Mac, Jesus Christ.
It went down in folklore in UCG, like, it did happen.
Yeah.
Just one before I let you go, Cyril, on your own Galway. How do you see them going second year in Henry Shefflin?
They lost would you believe that, losing the 2 home games and winning the game as well. But I'd be happier this year. I've seen nearly all the games this year, even the kind of the Wedge Cup games, and their panel is stronger. They definitely, like, the panel is stronger. But again, no more what Tomas says with Cork or even with Limerick, that it's going to be more or less the same team. Like, they have to decide where they're going to play. Joseph Cooley's playing good stuff. His younger brother Kevin seems to be kind of making the grade, kind of coming through. But like young fella there in Loughrea is coming through as well. McMahon. I don't know, to be honest, but it'd be much the same team. But last year, when you look at it, where Galway kind of fell down, Michael, was their subs had no impact. I'd say they're looking closely at that. He has a better run on the team this year because he saw the club championship last year and has they're together nearly 2 years now. So like, they will be hoping to beat Wexford first round. They have Kilkenny in the second round. But even if they lose down, they'll wind up in a Leinster final. To me, if they're going to go places, they have to win a Leinster title and come in that way as winners. And I think they're well capable of doing that.
Shane, do you want to come in there?
Oh, I was thinking too many cooks spoil the brat, so that's why I stepped back for a while. There was an update.
Shane, you're playing very cute there, so yeah.
I'm staying in the long grass. Michael Lyster, I wanted to ask you about, like, Pat Spillane, apparently, he was punched as he left Croke Park one day. A group of disgruntled supporters came up to him. Did you ever have anything like that where people got a bit too, close to the bone?
Well, I was fortunate in the sense that I only asked the questions. I didn't have to say the controversial things in response. So, no, I have to say, there was one guy one night at a function, and he came up, and I'm sat at the table, and he introduces himself by giving me a poke between the shoulders and looks at me and he says, "If we had you down in Navan a couple of months ago, we would have fucking hung you." And I'm thinking, like, what did I say about Meath, kind of, And I said, Jesus, I said, you better explain that to me. And you said this, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say any of this. So he's going on anyway about how I was going to be hung in Navan and whatever. And eventually, I copped on. This was, I think, on my first year on the Sunday game. He was actually talking about Jim Carney, who had presented the Sunday game before me, and got confused, obviously, in the two. So I said, hang on a second now. I said, sorry. I said, I think you have the wrong man here. I said, I think you're talking about a former colleague and former presenter, Jim Carney. And he looks at me and he says, doesn't matter a damn, he says. If we got you down in Navan, we'd hang you anyway. So we'll get into that.
Lads, I'll tell you a good one, lads. Talk about Brawley. We're above in Ballybuffet one day doing a football match, and there was a feed coming through from somewhere in Munster to do the hurling match. And I was with Brawley. We're in early, and we're walking. The only way we kind of walk on top of the seats, like going from one seat to the other, the concrete seats to go up to the box. So, Michael, you had to be there, but you weren't there at that time. And there was a few stones and straws coming. And I said to Brawley, what the hell are they? He said, come on, quick. He said, get into the box. And I said something about Donegal last Sunday. Get in here quick. Oh, stop. Brawley.
Oh, Lads, you've been brilliant with your time, but just to finish up then, Michael, who's going to win the All-Ireland in both codes?
I think Michael Lyster may have frozen there, actually.
He seems to have frozen for a second, all right. We'll start with you then, Cyril. Who's going to win the All-Ireland in the hurling this year anyway?
Well, I suppose whoever beats Limerick, but I know they're very hard to beat, but like Tip showed again how to play them in the first half. I know they didn't do the second half, and Tip did it 2 years ago as well, out the gate. Like, people are beginning to kind of read what they're doing, and they came up with answers. They got in at half time, but like there could be, you'd have to, the team playing would have to have a great day, and they could have an off day. The big thing is that they're scoring so many points from outside, not scoring goals, but they still have to go for Limerick. They'll be looking for someone to be, and I suppose like to me, like Kerry are that little bit ahead, but I kind of half fancy what you call Dublin this year with everyone back. They could make a big drive because they will come through Leinster, I think, easy enough, and. If they do that, like, they're back on the road again. And people are forgetting, like, that we're only barely beaten last year when all was said and done, like.
Can I just ask you lastly, sir, just the last question. As a manager, would you have any hesitation bringing back someone like Cluxton, regardless of his age? If you thought somebody could offer, in your managerial days, if you thought somebody could offer something to your squad and give you a better chance of winning All-Ireland, would you just bring them back regardless if you think it's going to improve your squad? Some people saying, oh, he's too old, or it looks bad on the goalkeepers that are there. It's a ruthless game as well, though. You try and get the best players you can to try and win.
Look, as you know, Michael, if you're over a team, you're going to have, if you're able, you're going to bring back the best fellas. That's the way I'd be anyway. Like, if he's available to come back. Now, some fellas could have family matters and would be able to come back, but if you could get him, I remember in 1980, I went to a house to get Michael Kennedy to goalie. He'd been dropped in 79 or 78, 79, was gone. And I went down to his house and his wife was there. And I said till 3:30 or 4 in the morning, talking to him to get him back. I needed him back. And he was saying, he had a bad back and I'm not able to train. I said, look, I need you. And he said, I've kind of gone past it. I said, no. I said, I don't think you're past it. I said, I'm going to use you, but I have to have you. I said, I'm not going to say yes, if you know what I mean. If you see a fella you want, I'm talking about a counter set up now, you have to go and you have to get him if he's good enough to get back. Like, if he's good enough to get back, like more than the two boys in America. Sure, if we could have left him in it, but we needed them. Like, you need everyone. Like, if you try to win All-Ireland, that's Limerick. Really, that's where they stand. Like, they seem to have the backing behind the team. They have the cash behind the team. They're able to get fellas back, or they're all working. But I don't know where they're working. You know what I mean? They're ready to get holidays, ready to go off. That means they have the support of a good, kind of a backup, which you need, like, really to win All-Irelands, because it's a costly, training is costly now. Like, and if you go away for weekends or weeks away, like, it does cost money. It doesn't come easy.
Yeah. Cyril, you've been unbelievable with your time. Thanks a million. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. It was great.
Hi, Shane, before we go, Shane, will these two new, what do you think of O'Connor, centre forward, wing forward? Is he going to make it for Tip?
The new corner forward and centre forward.
Gerard
O'Connor. Yeah, I think he's excellent, and I was hoping to see a bit more of him last year because he'd been really good with UL and franked the form again this year. I'm surprised he took over some of the frees actually earlier in the league, because he's not my favourite free taker, but I still think he's an excellent, and he's very physical. Tip need him.
What about Brian O'Mara?
Yeah, big fan of him as well. And the thing about him and the likes of Breen and all that is that they can play any real position. Sure, these days any back's going to have to be able to play full-back, 1 minute centre-back. So I'm happy with a lot of those lads. If you were able to throw in Barry Heffernan and Craig Morgan, that would be a big shove on for Tip again.
I thought Cal was doing a great job here, Dan, because he kept switching. I know Mara to see hurling with Joel now. I wouldn't know him if he walked here into the kitchen saying he's closed, but I know him and tugged out. And he kept him say, he had a wing back and he had a full back, and he kept Breen full back for a couple of games. And then we, like it, as you say, they're ready to juggle him around, because you can see what he's going to do. He's going to kind of pick horses for courses, like, And that Gareth O'Connor has been impressive. Like, again, he's kind of ungainly, but he might suit. If we had him now in Galway, I'd love him as centre forward, because he is what we are not. He's able to kind of win the rough ball and kind of horse it around the place and doesn't mind the belting. We've all lovely forwards in Galway without anyone doing the donkey work, really, and we're still looking for someone like that.
Just on that, Cyril, as well, that sort of player is worth their weight in gold, isn't it? Like a Bonner Matter in his prime, a John Power in his prime. Like, it's all grand having the silky lads and having the wristy lads, as you'd say, but you need someone to do the donkey work too. A Brendan Birmingham or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you just say Brendan Birmingham never got credit for what, like, good hurler, did very direct ball, that time it was fast ball, on the ground, move it. He might only move 5 or 10 yards, but he moved inside the centre back and was always very effective without ever kind of getting the plaudits of other lads, that kind of way. But, like, even Galway at the moment, we haven't any real hard man centre forward to win a hard ball. And I was thinking to myself the other day, they're going to have extra, like, maybe Fintan Burke might wind up with it. Maybe Gareth McInerney, never say you're daft, but they could do a job under the high ball and lay it off to the forward, say like Cathal Mannion or Cooley or these fellas like that. They would love the running ball, but like mightn't be as good to get it. And we just haven't got him. Whereas Tips seem to have found Garrett at the moment.
Do you remember actually, Cyril, a few years ago, Grode McInerney, I think he made his debut. This could have been 2014 or something like that. He played in the half-forward line against Kilkenny at Nolan Park in a league game. I don't know, do you remember that?
I do. And I remember in All-Ireland minor final, we drew with Kilkenny. And I was talking to Matt Murphy and he was saying, like, the wing back. I said, there's one lad now for the wing back and you're playing him wing back. I'd have the name of Keith Kilkenny. I said, switch him the next day up on. I can't think the Kilkenny wing back was very good. And sure, Matt would be Matt. He'd say, no, I won't do it, but he did it. And like, it worked a treat in the sense you could put the ball down the top of Keith Kilkenny and he'd win it, or the wing back wouldn't be able to get into the game as much, like, kind of a grafter of a lad. Now he wound up playing playing in the backs, but he won a minor All-Ireland wing forward on a replay. You know what I mean? Being out of position but doing the work like that needed to be done. And like at the moment we have kind of in Galway, you have Gareth McInerney and you have Dahi Burke kind of full and centre back. Fintan Burke to come back, and if they're going to play Mannion and Joe Coney saying they have backline, that'd leave one of them strong lads, maybe Fintan or Garrow at 3. Now, you've been thinking outside the box, and he wouldn't be a natural forward, but I saw Martin Keohane playing for St. Kieran's College, and he was the best centre-back college hurler that year. Colleges now. No, that time, it was under 18, that time, 19, I would say, and now he's full forward. Like, to me, he's still a way better back, but he's still doing the job. Like that they need him to do, and you look at Paddy Deegan and Pádraig Welsh, they've played up front and in the back, like as Shane says, the numbers don't matter if they're able to do the job, like that's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Cyril, look, you've been absolutely brilliant with your time. Delighted to have you on, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
All right, boys, no problem. Best of luck, lads. See you.
Thanks, sir.
Bye, lads.
Jeez, what a trip down memory lane, and the nostalgia was unbelievable, wasn't it?
The stories, like I hadn't heard half of them before. It was great stuff from the boys. Brilliant, yeah, brilliant. And it's funny, Michael Lyster is brilliant. He still has that presenter's mindset. He's great at orchestrating. He's brilliant now. That was class, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just said, Joe, I'm going to stay in the background here. There's too many on screen. Let's get them up a little bit more focused. So I was chuckling away here in the background the whole time. It was brilliant. There's a couple of other little news bits here that we haven't talked about yet. Páirc Uí Chaoimh's going to host the league final between Kilkenny and Limerick on Sunday week. It's 43 years, I think, since that venue has played host to this match. To me, Thurles is the obvious choice. Now, maybe there's a case of we need to spread it around or whatever, but I'm sure people both in Kilkenny and Limerick would like this game to be on Thurles. Is it a case of, like, if we want to spread this game around, should we not take it to Castlebar or, someplace that's completely different? This was something that was mentioned on the show last week. Who was it that mentioned it again? It might have been John Myler, actually. Maybe mix it around that way. Cork has plenty of games anyway.
Yeah, but there hasn't been as many millions put into Castlebar as there has been Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I think it's potentially a justification of the money that they've put in there. It doesn't really make sense. I think it rules a good few, potentially a lot of people out going to the game, particularly anyone probably from the middle of the country upwards. I don't know, is there games in Thurles? Is there a Munster Football Championship game in Thurles that Sunday? I personally thought it should have been played on the Saturday anyway, to give... particularly for Limerick anyway, to give them an extra day, and then they're going into the Munster Championship 2 weeks later, whereas now it's 14 days, 15 days would probably help them a bit more. Same with Kilkenny going into Leinster. But listen, you can't argue over the surface. The surface is going to be perfect, and it should be a belter of a final. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the venue though.
Yeah, Aidan O'Rourke is going to remain on charge of the Donegal senior footballers into the championship. He'll have Paddy Bradley, and he'll have, basically that's continuing to stay in place for Paddy Carr, which, of course, things weren't going right, but they need some stability. I don't know, did you hear it? Paddy McBrearty was talking after the match the other day, and he was like, as soon as we lost that game, which doomed them to relegation, which was their penultimate game of the league, they were like, Joe, we're in the mode already for the championship, the first round against Down. So whatever you saw there last Sunday is not the team you're going to see coming up in the first round of the championship. So who knows? Maybe they'll come out of nowhere and produce a performance.
Yeah, I think Anton McFadden is in as S&C coach now as well. And this thing with Aidan O'Rourke as well makes it even more interesting. You have 4 of the 2002 Armagh All-Ireland winning team now as inter-county managers. You have the 2 boys from Cross, Tony McEntee and Ushie McConville, who play off in the Division 4 final, Kieran McGeeney and Aidan O'Rourke. Like 1/8 of the inter-county managers in the 32 counties, and there's only 31 obviously in Ireland playing football. It's fair going. I just find it very, very hard to believe, and I know from listening to Enda Varley and Stephen Poacher as well, like it's very, very hard to see how they could turn it around. And Paddy's not even fit yet. You know, if you had someone like that, if you had a marquee man potentially to hang your hat on, maybe, and he's able to kick 4 or 5 scores in a game, maybe to get them over the line. But just find it very hard to see with the general kind of apathy within the county at the moment, and across all levels, and with the academy and everything that's going on. Even though I did see they beat Antrim on penalties last night in the under-20 championship. So at least it hasn't kind of had a ripple down effect to that level.
Yeah, and the Poacher and Varley show, that'll be on this evening, so keep an eye out for that. It's always great value. There's a trio of Tipperary ladies footballers heading down under: Ashley Maloney, Anna Rose Kennedy and Niamh Martin. There's already plenty of players from across Ireland that are down at the AFLW. I was chatting to Shane Brophy and Thomas Conway on the Tipcast yesterday. I do think it's getting to the stage where this is really starting to destabilise ladies football, and there'll probably have to be a calendar change soon enough. Like it's brilliant for all you wouldn't begrudge any of the players, but it's really not good for the LGFA when just great players have been pilfered across the country.
No, I think there's the guts of about 30. I think it was 23 last year. So that's 7 more and counting, like, you know, and there will be more. Now I know like Vicky Wall and a couple of others have maybe arrangements where they're allowed to come back and play football, and that's part of their deal and part of how they were able to be lured out there. But it's getting towards the point where it's going to have a serious effect on the LGFA, and it's something like I don't think a ban or anything like that is the right way to go about it. I think maybe they should accommodate them to some extent calendar wise, but that would take a fair sea change for that to happen as well. So yeah, it's getting towards crisis point where something is going to have to happen and something's going to have to change.
There's talk that the GAA's CCCC are going to look at incidents in both league semi-finals. Owen Downey, he was sent off, of course, and there was 4 yellow cards there. So we'll see what happens with that. And then also the incident involving Will O'Donoghue and Alan Tynan. So I'm just wondering with these things, fair enough, if a referee decides on the day and gives a red card, it's a red card. And if there isn't video to prove it otherwise, then fair enough. You know, the card has to remain. But I wonder with some of these situations with Tynan and O'Donoghue, you know, it wasn't caught at the time in the sense that they didn't get red cards. Could there be kind of like an official warning for players who are caught after the fact? You know, if it's their first offence that's been caught on camera this year, or should they go straight for the red card? And
it's a funny one, because say the 4 yellows in that melee between Kilkenny and Cork, that's dealt with, so those guys won't get any retrospective action. Whereas, you know, if you, in inverted commas, get away with it on the day, there's a chance that you're going to be caught out afterwards or whatever. The Tynan Will O'Donoghue thing, listen, it was before throwing, they both probably did things they shouldn't have done, but like, that's just my opinion. I wouldn't be banning either after the fact. Jesus, didn't it add to the game? Or am I wrong? Like, I thought it added to the game. I thought it added to the game immensely. But I don't know about that sort of thing where something happens before a game. It's the Colin Lynch. It's the Colin Lynch incident from 1998 again, isn't it? Where they were pulling wildly, and I think pulling across his own man even, and he got done. And he got done retrospective. That was retrospective after, wasn't it? I think after.
Yeah. That was the court case and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a big fan of seeing anyone banned. That's not to say you can have a lawless game or anything like that, but I wouldn't be going back. Look, I wouldn't be going. The warning or something like that, or we're watching you closely or something like that, maybe would be better. I know I'm probably contradicting myself there to some extent with some things I've said before, but I just don't like seeing lads kind of getting banned for games for stuff like that. There's nothing malicious or anything in it. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, and you can understand though a Clare supporter being like, David Fitzgerald is suspended now for a red card incident, and you know, you can understand why they'd say, well, look, why is this lad getting away with that, you know, from the Tipperary side of things. But anyway, look, we're not going to.
Well, he was red carded at the time. That's one thing I will say. Like, he was, you know, the punishment was dealt with there and then by the referee. He saw it fit or whatever. I think of any county, Clare are going to be particularly disgruntled in recent years. You have the Aidan McCarthy black card that turned the game against Tip. That was, bizarre, really. Then it was bizarre. Closer to the Ennis Road than he was to the goals. Jason Foot was it Jake Morris going through. Then you have the two boys getting the retrospective bans after the Munster final last year and that being quashed. So I can understand how people in Clare kind of see this almost siege mentality as regards to, officialdom and decisions that have been handed down to them in recent years, and the David Fitzgerald one recently.
They do love a bit of siege mentality in Clare, don't they?
They do, and you're 25 years on from with Colin Lynch and Brian Lohan sitting in the stand when they played Offaly. Do you know what I mean? So there's legacy kind of issues there as well.
So Kilkenny are expected to have a couple of the big hitters back in the next few weeks, TJ Reid and Adrian Mullen. It would be brilliant to see them in the league final, wouldn't it? I'm sure Ling would like to have them on the field just so he can put as close to possible his best team out, see what they'll produce. He has a free hit against a Limerick team that he won't see until later in the summer, if at all. Obviously it depends on how things go. But it's a great chance for him to put everyone out and see what he has.
Yeah, I don't think even if they were fit that they'd be playing, because they haven't played games yet. I'm thinking about from a confidence point of view, would it be the right thing to throw TJ Reid into a league final where it's literally kill or be killed when he hasn't played a game in 3 months since been carrying a knock?
If you were the manager and you were thinking 10 minutes to go here, level game, I have TJ Reid.
Okay, different scenario there. Yeah, coming on potentially. Here's one for you. I don't think there's any debate personally, but Nicky Brennan said it to me the other day, and he said it to a couple of the other journalists. Who takes the freeze for Kilkenny in Championship?
TJ Reid all day, every day.
Yeah, the lads were Nicky was debating that you couldn't nearly take Billy off them, but at the end of the day, on one hand, and I do think Billy Drennan is the second coming in terms of free taking duties anyway, and I'm sure his contributions from play will get higher. He's radar almost. But TJ Reid has done it on the biggest of occasions over and over again. I actually don't even think it's a debate at this moment in time.
No, definitely not. If you had if your best free taker, I'm thinking of Burris Lee back around the year of going to the All-Ireland final. You had Brendan Maher, who's playing kind of centre-back sweeper, so he's sitting very close to his own goal, and he came up even for frees on the 21. Would you be that way about frees, that your best free taker, even if he has to go the length of the field, he's going to go up and take those frees?
I wouldn't generally, no. I wouldn't generally, and I think some of the frees that Brendan would have went up to hit, geez, you'd be very hopeful that 60 or forwards be able to put them over anyway.
But there was very good reason, because sometimes these weren't going over, and if you have trouble with your frees, you're going to bring a lad all the way back from his own D up to the 21 even. Yeah,
I'm sure. Look at what they're doing with the goalkeepers in football, and that's obviously they're bringing them up the length of the field because they're worried that somebody else won't be able to throw it over. So at the end of the day, it's all about getting points on the board. So if you had to bring a lad from corner back up to the 21 to hit frees, that's what you will do. I think and Johnny Kelly knew his players best, and he knew that Brendan was probably percentage wise going to get more scores on the board than anyone else hitting him, even if it was a 21 straight in front of the goal. So if you have to bring him up, you bring him up.
Yeah, so we had an exclusive on the website, OurGame.ie, the other day about Stephen Cluxton playing his first game for Dublin in 829 days. This was a bit of a backup Dublin outfit up against Meath, a game that Dublin won very, very comprehensively. And you can see there Stephen Cluxton was signing autographs after the game as well. But I mean, if they're organising a challenge match like that, good and quick, getting him out there into action. Now, this would have been the first proper sort of game, because obviously they were keeping it under wraps before this. If there was any sort of a challenge match, the word would have got out there by now. So they're obviously planning to push ahead and see what he's actually like between the sticks.
Well, we know what he's like between the sticks. I think it's an absolute no-brainer that he starts.
Do we know what he's like between the sticks? It's been 829 days.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any worry whatsoever. Genuinely, I think I don't know if he'll start this weekend, but I think he'll start the first round of Leinster. I do, yeah. He's not in there. He's not in there to make up numbers, and he wasn't called back in to make up numbers. And I don't buy the idea of him stepping into the breach or anything like that, being honest. This is obviously a conversation that probably happened a good while ago and maybe happened again and again and again. And maybe Pat Gilroy has had a big play in it, and him coming into the setup, and even McCaffrey and Mannion coming back. But no, I see. And I don't buy the age argument either. I don't buy the age argument at all. Of all the positions where you could get away with being a couple of years older, here's a guy who was Footballer of the Year in 2019, still probably the best goalkeeper in the country at the end of the 2020 season. I don't think he will have missed a beat at all, and yeah, I expect him to start come summer.
But has he been in the goals with Parnells in the meantime? Because he often plays outfield for them.
Yeah, sure. Even there was times when he was the best goalkeeper in the country, and he was playing wing forward for Parnells, by all accounts. So, like, you know, Niall Morgan doesn't play in goals for his club. You know, I just think he's a bit. I think he's a bit different. By all accounts, he's been, from what I hear anecdotally, up around Coolock, he's been doing a hell of a lot of training by himself in the last couple of months. And I was wondering, was there the potential of a comeback? And then you're thinking, it's probably a bit far-fetched to think that this has come back, and turns out it's not far-fetched at all. I don't know if a football championship has ever been more anticipated than the one we have coming. And I just love the fact that I think the Dubs realise that, you know, the conveyor belt is not as strong as we would like. We're literally like pulling out everything possible. Desi Farrell has brought an All-Ireland winning manager into his setup. He's somehow got McCaffrey back, who was never going to come back. He's somehow got Mannion back. He somehow got Cluxton back, despite all the various hoo-ha that people say was around why he left and the training breach and all this. They're all back now. And like, when you go down through, you know, Dublin's frontliners, you think Cluxton, Fitzsimons, Small, Mannion, McCaffrey, Howard, Fenton, Kilkenny, Conn. Like, they are all still some of the best footballers in the country. And I just think it's fascinating to see that they're throwing absolutely everything at getting their hands on Sam Maguire again, because they realise, and probably like Ger Brennan said, they realise that they might not get another chance for quite some time.
Yeah, well, look, we'll tee up the Division 2 final between Derry and Dublin in a minute. So just this weekend, the Division 4 final is on Saturday at 5 p.m. Wicklow against Sligo. The battle across McGlen sees Tony McEntee was over Sligo against Oisin McConville, who's the manager of the Garden County. That's a very interesting one. Two lads who know each other so well coming up. Like, they'll probably even have a bit of wry smile with each other. They'll probably even bump into each other in the shop heading into the match and everything. It's kind of gas.
Even more so than that. Oisin is the manager of the Cross McGlen under 12s, and Tony McEntee is the coaching officer within Cross. So Oisin was speaking to Colin Keys this week, and he just says, I'm basically on to Tony every day of the week because he provides me with my cones and my bibs, and if I'm organising matches, it's all done through Tony. And he said, I think they were chatting last Sunday evening, and everything came up, bar the Division 4 final. They were just chatting about, you know, Cross McGlen and what we need to do, X, Y, and Z. So, like, Oisin was joint manager of Cross McGlen with Tony's twin brother, like, as well. Like, you couldn't be much closer. They've won All Irelands together for club and county. I think this is fascinating. It's obviously happened, you know, a bit, and it happened with Willie Maher and Liam Cattler earlier on this year, and it's happened with Jimmy Barry and John Allen and a few more, and Henry Shefflin and Michael Fenley. But this is probably the most interesting one, I'd say, because they still have dealings with each other nearly every day of the week.
Yeah, you have to think about, like, so some of the lads that you would have played club with over the years, and I'm thinking about here, you know, especially some of the lads that you'd be having the crack with all the time. Imagine coming up against them in a match now, where it's a match of serious consequence. It's at Croke Park. There's TV cameras there. There's a cup on offer as well. Like, that would be a very strange situation.
Oh, big time, yeah, big time. And if you look at it from Wicklow's point of view, like, Wicklow are one of two counties that have never won a provincial title. Imagine getting their hands on, like, am I right in saying, take out the Tommy Murphy Cup, which they won under Micko. Like, if they ever lifted senior silverware in Croke Park, there might be maybe an All-Ireland B or something like that down through the year. But this is huge for them. And for McConville to step out of Sunday Game studio and, you know, 6 or 7 months later, bring a team to, they're already in Division 3. Now they have a chance of winning a Division 4, you know, title and lifting silverware in Croke Park. Be an unbelievable achievement, you'd have to say. Obviously, McEntee's been in Sligo a couple more years. They've been kind of slowly building. They were good in the Tailteann Cup last year. They were good in that semi-final even when they were beaten by Cavan. Probably be favouring Sligo, but I'm sure they'll shake hands during or beforehand and shake hands after, but knowing the two of them, they'll go hammer and tongs at it. They're both like really, really fierce competitors.
Yeah, I just looked it up there. I couldn't find anything that Wicklow had won at senior level. So this would be a big one for them outside of the Tommy Murphy Cup. But look, maybe the Wikipedia page isn't 100% correct. Cavan will play against Fermanagh. So, I mean, last week, Cavan didn't really put out their full-strength team, and Fermanagh were able to get the victory to ensure that they get into this final. Like Fermanagh, a couple of times this year, they've been losing games right at the end, and they've gotten late goals. I think Sean Quigley once, if not twice, got those late goals.
Twice, yeah.
And here they are. Isn't it mad, the fine margins?
Well, Offaly beat Fermanagh in round 2, and you're kind of thinking, I thought Offaly would be a mid-table Division 3 team this year, to be honest with you. Offaly beat them in Tullamore, and you're thinking, Fermanagh could be struggling, could be down the other end of the table. Sean Quigley gets a goal in the 74th minute against Down to win by a point. They're 8 points down against Antrim the next day, win by a point as well. It's amazing. Like, just I literally think their season has probably turned on one moment, and that's Quigley's goal against Down. When, let's call it a spade, we were all probably thinking that Down were the potential bolter in Division 3 and the potential bolter going into the 2023 Ulster Championship as well. Just got there was a couple of comments from the manager, Kieran Donnelly, after the Down game, and he just says, you know something, I just have that feeling with our boys after last week that it can happen for us. This is just talking after the Down game and before the Antrim game, so he predicted it fairly well. He said, maybe it's from that bounce last week. There were other years when you think it's gone, but I just felt that there's something in us, something about our body language, because we were still chasing the last ball. I had utter faith in the boys, and all of a sudden, like, having been beaten by Offaly in the round 2, they had a win in round 1. They've had 5 wins on the bounce, and they ended up topping the table in Division 3. And I'm sure they'll fancy their chances of getting a result against Cavan at the weekend as well. It's been a great story because, let's call it a spade. They were not a team on anybody's lips coming into the league. And Kieran Donnelly's obviously done a fantastic job. And when you have someone like Sean Quigley still contributing, like, he's on his day like one of the classiest forwards in the country. Remember, he get a couple of goals, definitely got one goal against Dublin in an All-Ireland quarter-final in Croke Park, I remember, years ago as well. He's a brilliant footballer, and they have him humming again.
Is that the time he pushed Stephen Cluxton over the line? Yeah, and he became a bit of a pantomime villain that day. Was that 2014 or 15 or something like that? But
15, I think, yeah.
There was a bit of crack being had, and the Dublin supporters were starting to get on his back or whatever, but he seemed to be enjoying it. And at one stage, his face came up on the big screen in the stadium, and it was like kind of booed, and he was smirking, and it was all kind of hilarious, and it was good-natured, and I really enjoyed that. Dublin against Derry, that's going to be at 1:45 on Sunday. If Cluxton played well the other night up in Fingallion's GAA against that Meath development squad, could he be thrust right in now, or do you reckon that they're suspecting that the Leinster Championship is going to be so winnable for them that they can just slowly introduce him and not just pull David Hanlon out? It would be tough actually for Desi Farrell to pull his clubmate David O'Hanlon out of the team.
It would be very harsh because O'Hanlon has done nothing wrong. Like, he saved them against Cork that day, made some great saves the other day as well. He's done very little wrong. I think it's a case of, I think O'Hanlon definitely plays this weekend, and then it's, things can change in a couple of weeks in training. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it would be very disrespectful to not, like, to me, David O'Hanlon either has to play himself out of position or Cluxton has to play himself into the position. So I'm sure there'll be a couple of in-house games before they start the Leinster Championship, and if Cluxton thrives in them, I'd say he'll be in. But O'Hanlon has done nothing wrong so far. From a Derry point of view here, you're thinking, geez, if they're able to beat Dublin twice within a couple of weeks going into Championship, they're already, we know they're flying, they're up in Division 1, but imagine what it would do for, your mentality going into the summer, knowing that we've come from behind against Dublin, kicked the winning score, and we've beaten them again, in their home patch. It'd be huge.
Yeah, because Rory Gallagher doesn't really like to change his panel. He changed around the team a little bit last week because obviously they were through already. Having gotten to an All-Ireland semi-final last year and, not really performing the way they would have liked in that final, and they looked a little bit gun-shy towards the end when they needed scores. If he could come back up to Croke Park, which was the scene of their season ending last year, put it right, get a victory against a real All-Ireland challenger, the confidence his team would get going into the season would be absolutely huge. Then, of course, we have the Mayo against Galway Division 1 League final as well. Now, in some ways, I'd say Mayo, they need this game like a hole in the head because they've got the Roscommon game coming up so soon, and if they win that, they're up against Galway again. but still in all, there's silverware there. So why not get the newer crop, I suppose? Like they won this in 2019, but get the newer crop used to winning at Croke Park, used to lifting silverware, so that when it gets to that stage later in the season, assuming Mayo are the real deal, it feels like this team could be the real deal, but you need to be used to winning silverware at Croke Park and not have this sort of inferiority complex when it comes to the big day.
Well, I'm just thinking about last year's league final when they were beaten 3-19 to 13 points and were really, I think, chasing their tail for the rest of the season thereafter. I think there's a lot to be said for keeping momentum while you can, and you don't get too many opportunities to win a national title. Like, I remember that 2019 league final win. I thought that was hugely, actually nearly hugely emotional almost, because it was the first time that team had won a big game in Croke Park. Remember the green and red of Mayo been belted out and lads were getting emotional. And I remember Andy Moore talking about it when he retired. It was one of his at least they got that day. I know you can say it's only a league title or whatever, but I think they'd be reluctant to pull the reins in, or they gave a few lads chances last week. Like Jason Doherty was centre back last week. Robbie Henley started in goals. There was a good few boys got opportunities. I think they'll go with pretty much their strongest 15 and they'll go and try and win this game. Galway have the luxury of having a bit more time, but I think Mayo will probably think about last year and think, yeah, we underperformed in the league final and we were under pressure thereafter. I think there's a lot to be said for when you have your foot on the throttle, keep it on the throttle. I'm not saying you have to go top speed, but you keep the foot down and keep the feel-good factor going.
Yeah, you were willing to keep that driving analogy going as long as possible there. Okay, so that's the Division 1 fight. I was actually reading a bit from Lee Keegan's column, and he was talking about Galway. He said John Daly has been a revelation for them over the past year. He's such a great playmaker with his kick passing, and he opens up huge opportunities for the forwards, which actually makes me think of you talking about Jason Doherty playing at centre back, and then you had Conor Loftus before that as well. So is this a sign that McStay is looking for a football at centre back? But he also talks about, and Paul Conroy has been sensational in midfield, seems to get better with age. With Park in his fourth year, they'll be keen to get their hands on national silverware. They haven't won a league title since 1981. It'd be a great way to cement themselves in the top tier. I'd already placed them in the top 3 in the country. Speaking of players coming back out of retirement, geez, if only they could talk Lee Keegan back into coming back from Mayo. The only problem is, when he seems to step up, the rest of them don't step up. So maybe the rest of them learning that we need to lift it here rather than waiting for Lee.
Maybe so, yeah, maybe so. Just as you're talking there, I'm thinking as well, is Connacht the best province now? Or they have the top 3 in the country in the league? I know it's the league, but it's fair going. You have the top 2 meeting in the final. You obviously had Roscommon as well.
Yeah, well, the reason that I like Leinster and Munster have been a bit of a waste of time in recent years. Let's hope we get good games this year. But you'd probably think Ulster is still more cutthroat. But in terms of like really entertaining teams to watch, those 3 from Connacht would probably put it ahead. So yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Speaking of Connacht as well, just a word on Emlyn Mulligan, who stepped away from Leitrim yesterday. Really, bad injuries over the last couple of years. I don't think he played this year so far. He was in around the squad, but he hasn't been able to get fit. His last game was, I think, that Tailteann Cup quarter final where they lost to Sligo last year after extra time. I think he kicked the point that day. 3 cruciates in his career, and to stay going, like, that's Colm O'Neill territory. That's really, really difficult. And he just said that that past injuries had caught up on him. But yeah, a great career, because it's not simple to keep your shoulder to the wheel when you're far away from the spotlight. I'm not saying it's all about spotlight or anything like that, but it's not the most glamorous down in the, as a fella described it to me from Leitrim, down in the basement division. It's not the most glamorous thing. That your eyes aren't really on you, but fair play to him. He kept it going for a long time. I think 17 seasons nearly all told. So just a hat tip to him.
Yeah, and like, I think his good friend Paul Brennan, who's also obviously a Leitrim man, he went and played for Donegal, which, congratulations and best of luck with that. Whereas Mulligan, again, he's on the Donegal border there. He was, asked by Donegal to play, or certainly was kind of teed up about it. He stayed playing with Leitrim throughout his career. So, you'd have to give him massive credit for that, because he probably could have gone on and been very successful with Donegal, but he stuck with his native county. Moving on to the hurling this week.
A quick quiz time. I think we'll do a little quiz time. I think we'll do a little quiz time. I have 3 questions here, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend it this year, but I got some of the questions after. These are from the Tony Dorn annual Buffers Alley GAA quiz. So these are 3 questions that cropped up, all right?
Okay.
They are 3 hurling questions, okay? First question is, Which 3 Limerick players didn't win All-Stars in 2021? So 12 Limerick players were selected for All-Stars in 2021. Which 3 Limerick players didn't win an All-Star? That's the first question.
Okay.
Name.
By the way, viewers, get your answers in all together. There's no point repeating them there.
3 answers together. Question number 2. Which hurler played in All-Ireland finals in 3 different decades and never won one? So which hurler played in All-Ireland senior hurling finals in 3 different decades and never won one?
Wow.
And the last question is, what is the last year where Kilkenny didn't win a hurling All-Star?
The last year?
Yeah. So what is the last year where Kilkenny didn't win a hurling All-Star? So the last year where they had no All-Stars.
Okay.
We might allow a few of the viewers to come in, and might just preview a few of the games, and we can come back to it. And I get your answers, even though I don't think you have too many answers.
No, I'm kind of clutching at straws. That's tough. Jesus, the stakes are high in that Tony Doran.
No, they're not simple. And you need the team of 4. You literally, I wouldn't have got the Limerick 3. I would have got 1 wrong. But if I'd been talking to somebody else, I would have probably got it right. If you get me, if you're over and back with 3 teammates or whatever.
So a person who played in 3 in All-Ireland finals.
No, do you know what the funny thing about this is? You 100% know this, and you've asked me this question before, I think. So I thought you'd get it straight away.
But have they also won in All-Ireland? But they've won All-Irelands, but also lost them.
No, they've never won in All-Ireland.
Okay.
So hurler played in All-Ireland final in 3 different decades and never won one.
So I'm thinking late 80s, sometime in the 90s, and then early 90s, something like that.
No.
No?
No. Skip forward a bit.
Okay.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it at the end of the show. We'll go through.
Oh, I think I have it. Do I?
Yeah, I'd say you might.
I'd say I do.
I'd say you might, yeah. We'll come back to it. We'll have a look at some of the hurling games.
Okay, yeah, so Kildare against Offaly this weekend. Kildare have been flying, even underage. They had a huge victory over Carlow during the week. Was it something like 20 points? Like, Kildare are coming. We saw what Naas did in the first half against Ballyhale Shamrocks, even though they petered out. But Kildare Offaly this weekend. Are you feeling confident about this game? I can't imagine you're overly confident.
Oh, God, you wouldn't be overly confident anyway. Definitely not. We obviously played last week, had a good win against Kerry. An important win, important to get back to this spot, particularly after just losing out on the final spot automatically because of score difference. But no, I wouldn't be all that confident. I think there'll only be a score or 2 in it. But like from the last time we played them, we're missing Ross Ravenhill. Obviously, Oisin Kelly is gone. I think Kildare are coming into it probably even better preparation with that kind of 2-week gap. Yeah, I wouldn't be. I think I'd probably be favouring Kildare by a score or 2, if I'm honest. Now, the elephant in the room here, and it's going to be an elephant for a couple of months, is if Kildare do get promoted, and it'll be huge, and it'll be massive for them to be playing Division 1. But realistically, unless the structure of Division 1 changes, it's kind of a waste of time. Am I wrong in saying that? Is there?
So you just going up and getting hammered if they end up in the wrong group?
What's the point? What was the point for Westmeath this year? What was the point for Offaly the year before? What was the point for Westmeath the year before that? I genuinely would be going back to the old 1A and 1B where it's on rankings and you have the top 6 in 1A and then you have 7 to 12 in 1B. And what I'm hearing is there's a potential that it could be 2 groups of 7 so that you have 14 teams in Division 1. That's what they're talking about potentially in a restructuring of the league. But the idea of the winner of 2A going straight into Group A, I think is absolute madness. Joe Fortune will tell you that. Nick Fenley will tell you that. Who was the previous Westmeath manager before that? I can't think of it offhand. Shane O'Brien will tell you that. It's just mad. There's no benefit to it really. But by all accounts, they want to be exposed to playing better teams. But wouldn't it be far better exposed playing Antrim, playing Laois, playing Offaly, playing Dublin, playing West? Do you know what I mean? The teams down the bottom end, that would be much more beneficial for them. That's kind of squeezed middle almost now, and they're getting no benefit under the current structure. Now, I don't want to rain on the parade because if they do get promoted, it would be unreal, but it'd be unreal right now. And then all of a sudden you come to next January and you're like, Kildare have been defeated by an average of 15 points per game, which is no good for them. But it's a big game for both counties. I would say if you're looking at which of the two teams are on more of an upward trajectory, I'd say given account of Naas and the health of their players at the moment and the lack of injuries, I'd say Kildare, and I'd have Kildare as probably marginal favourites to win.
Okay, so Meath against Donegal in Division 2B final. So Donegal caused a huge upset last weekend, beating Wicklow by a point. But Meath, like when you think of it last year, weren't they being roundly beaten and beaten well in games? But they seem to be having a very good year under Saoirse Bulfin this year. They're favourites to win that. There's a couple of other games. Division 3A final, Roscommon against Armagh. Geez, Roscommon have really turned it around since Francis O'Halloran left and Seamus Qualter took over. It's been it's unbelievable. 3B final, Kavanagh against Leitrim. So a couple of my old Coola teammates are going to be playing in this one. The two Shannons and Nicky Kenny. So I might even tip out to Abbottstown for that one. And there's a couple of plenty of games underage as well. So we kind of have it all set here.
That, Shane, actually about Niall Arthur, who used to play a bit with Clare. He obviously wanted a transfer to Monaghan, but it was kind of mid-season. So from what I can understand of it, Monaghan kind of fixed a round of the senior hurling championship.
So did Cavan.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
Or maybe Cavan did it for football to get one of the players involved for the hurling this year. So like
obviously that's kind of harping back to the Shawnee Johnson scenario where what's the name of the club he played with in Kildare?
Curraquill? No, Curraquill.
Was it Aero Curraquill? Not
sure.
Something
like that.
You might just check it there just so we're 100%. But by all accounts, there seems to have been a round of the Monaghan Senior Hurling Championship played this year, so that Niall Arthur could tog out for his new club and be eligible to play championship. You have to love. I think it's gas. Like county boards can be so tongue-tied in red tape at times, and then all of a sudden when they really need to do something, it's like the GAA with the split season or different things. When they really need to do things, or you have to, or your arm is forced, your hand is forced, you just go and do it. But it's kind of a mad one.
Yeah, it was Aero Curraquill.
Okay.
I
remember coming on with the helmet. I don't know if Shawnee had ever played hurling before. Like he came on for a minute at the end of the game.
Okay, so that's it from the show today. If you want to get the audio version, no, it's not. The answers to the question. I'll pause the music.
Okay.
So, give me the questions again.
Which three Limerick players didn't win All-Stars in 2021?
So I have. Was it our clock against Curraquill? Richard Hogan is suggesting there. Was it Nicky Quaid, Barry Nash, Peter Casey?
No, Nicky Quaid, Dan Morrissey, and Aaron Gillan. And I tell you why the Gillan thing annoyed me is because we did an all-star selection and we both left them out, and we had Limerick people abusing us, and it was in line with the. But Graham Mulcahy didn't start that year. Peter Casey did start that year, did he? Yeah, Peter Casey did start. He got an all-star. Remember, he got the 5 points in the All-Ireland before he went off. Yeah. So Owen Murphy got the keeper's all-star. Dottie Burke got the fullback all-star, and Conor Prunty got the fullback all-star, and I'm not sure who was corner forward. But who is the hurler to play in an All-Ireland senior hurling final in 3 different decades and never win one?
Kevin Moran.
Excellent, very good, very good. And the last year where Kilkenny didn't get an all-star, and I want one answer here. No, it's either whatever. One answer.
2018?
No, 2017. And just think of who beat Kilkenny in 2018?
Waterford and Thurles.
No, that was 17.
That's why I'm mixing it up.
Who won it in 2018? Who won the All-Ireland in 2018?
Oh, that was that was Limerick. Yeah. So did Owen Murphy get it for those saves?
Yeah. Again, I started it off by saying 2017, and then it was like, was it 2018? And then if I had someone there, I would have said 2017. But yeah, tricky questions, in fairness. Tricky questions.
Very tough one. Okay, so that's it for the show today. If you want to get the audio podcast, it's at patreon.com/OurGame. If you want us to run a fundraiser for you and you need to look after your finances for the year, email us at events@ourgame.ie. That's the height of it, Michael. We'll see you again soon on Monday.
Cheers, Shano.